Okay, so I don't want this to turn into me just reading to you guys, but I will have you guys just read through some of these things, and I'll go through it kind of slow because I don't want to just like speed through it all because it really is important. There is no one that talks to you more than yourself. Okay, there's no coach, there's no teammate, parents, doesn't matter. No one talks to yourself more than you do. And that's going to be true it's going to be true on the baseball field. It's going to be true off the baseball field too, right? I mean, you guys are constantly having this internal dialogue with yourself, right? Even myself, as I'm going throughout my day, right? You're constantly talking to yourself, and those things that you're saying to yourself, that's what shapes your beliefs over time. And a lot of times it's not even something that you're aware of, because it just becomes like this automatic and habitual thing where, however it is that you're perceiving the world around you is always typically the same. And it's just this default pattern that a lot of us fall into. And again, that's what your self-talk is, and that's what I want to talk about today. Last week we talked about your pressure fingerprint, which is how you tend to react to nerves and pressure situations. We also kind of have a self-talk fingerprint, which is, how we perceive the world tends to get habitual. Like I said, tends to get automatic. And so all of those things influence, our emotions, our focus, our performance, whether it's on the baseball field or off the baseball field. And so I just want to use this today to kind of help you kind of gain awareness of your self-talk, and determine if that self-talk is either beneficial or detrimental. Okay, because self-talk isn't necessarily good or bad, and it's different for everyone, right? The way that you're going to talk to yourself, Troy, is going to be different than the way Grayson's going to talk to himself, or Charlie's going to talk to himself. And it works for one guy, it won't work for another, right? What works for me might not work for you. Okay, and so today I just wanted to help us first of all understand what self-talk is, and then how we can figure out what works for us, because we're all different. And the sooner that we can figure out what works well for us, the better, right? So we kind of talked about what self-talk is. So this is the uh, the thing that I picked up yesterday from Andy Bass. He's in charge of sports psychology for the Pirates, and he talked about how self-talk is either beneficial or detrimental. So you'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, you got to be positive. You got to be positive. We can't be negative all the time." Well, yeah, that's great, and there could be some truth to that. Um, but some people actually function better when their self-talk is quote unquote negative, right? And so what we really need to understand is that some self-talk is either beneficial, it's helpful, or it's detrimental, it's unhelpful. So in some cases, what might come off as negative self-talk might actually be beneficial for somebody, right? And what might come off as positive self-talk might actually be detrimental. And so we need to figure out, is the way that we're talking to ourselves helping our performance or hurting our performance? And if we can figure out what that is, then we can learn how to manage it and know, okay, when I need to perform well, this is what beneficial self-talk looks like for me. And when things aren't going well, this is the self-talk pattern that I tend to fall into, and this is what's detrimental for me. And if you can figure out what that is, A, it'll help you become aware of what your self-talk is, and then B, it'll help you actually work through it and figure out what you need to do in order to be successful. So, either, like I said, beneficial or detrimental. It just really depends on the athlete. Okay, so what are some types of detrimental self-talk? I'm gonna let you guys just read through this on your own. Okay, so each of these are probably things that you've fallen into, right? We've all probably have had some version of these thoughts, right? Doubt-based. I hope I don't walk this guy again, right? It's like, for example, as a coach, there's always like one guy that I hit fungos to that I always miss hit the ball. When there's always one guy that steps into batting practice when I throw BP that I struggle to throw BP to. And it's because I fall into this pattern of like, gosh dang it, I can't throw BP to this guy. You know what I'm saying? Or when someone steps in the box, it's the kind of the same thing where you're just like, oh man, I can't get this guy out, right? I hope I don't walk this guy again. The results focused one, this can take on a lot of different patterns, right? Really need to get a strikeout here. And you start getting so focused on, hey, I need to get a strikeout that you actually don't focus on what you need to do in the moment, which is probably get ahead 0-1, right? Or I think the other result focused one that a lot of pitchers fall into, I see this all the time, is when, especially when guys aren't throwing a ton and they're not getting a lot of opportunities, they get on the mound and all they're thinking about is, hey, I can't screw this up because if I don't throw well here, then I'm not going to get a pitch again. And then what happens? They start thinking about or worrying about things that haven't happened yet, right? They're so worried about, am I going to pitch well enough so I can pitch again next week, that they're not focused on the present moment, and then their performance suffers, and then they walk the house, or they give up some hits, and then it just becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, and they basically just cause that next outing to, or they lose their opportunity for their next outing just because they spoke it into existence essentially. The mechanical overload, where you're super worried about where your body's at. We've talked about that before, right? We can't be focused on how we're moving internally. Dwelling on the past, right? Can't believe I missed that pitch. Can't believe I walked that guy. Can't believe you up that hit. Future worrying. This is kind of like the results one that I just talked about, right? If I don't do well now, I'm not going to get a pitch again, and then you don't do well now because you're not focused on the present. And then catastrophizing, which is, if I walk this guy, we lose the game, right? And you're so worried about the fact that you'll lose the game if you walk the guy that you're not focused on what you need to do in the moment, and you lose the game. So my question for you guys is, which one would you say is your number one type of self-talk that you fall into? We're going to go one by one. Anybody want to go first, or I'll call on you?
Mine is doubt based.
Okay. So give me an example.
So like if I already walked this kid and then they come back up to the plate, I feel like I don't want to walk them again. Or like if I don't have an open bag, like I'm just hoping that I don't walk them and hoping that I throw strikes.
Okay. Gotcha. So you get into that prayer mode, probably hoping and praying.
Yeah.
Grayson, what about you? You're next on my list.
I'd say mine's also doubt based.
Okay. Kind of the same thing, just not sure of yourself.
Yeah, it's just like not wanting to walk. Like if I walk somebody, it's like don't like I'm like don't walk this next guy too.
Right. So it's like don't add to the snowball, basically. You walk one guy, which I know how it is. You walk somebody and then Coach Lyman's probably freaking out. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you're like, okay, well, I can't do that again. And then you're
yeah.
so worried about it.
He hates walks.
Exactly. Well, I mean, no coach likes walks, but but he really doesn't like
Yeah,
walks. And
he really
he
really
lets
does.
you know about it. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Gabe, what about you?
I'm also doubt based.
Okay. Just mostly centered around walks or hits?
Walks.
Okay. Cam?
I'd say I'm result focused. Like I need to execute here.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Um, because I feel like if I don't execute, then I won't get to that next step where I need to be. So I need to do it now, or it's not going to happen.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like results slash teacher worrying, would you say? Would it be more
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah.
Like if I don't perform well now, then I might not get the next opportunity, or I might not to play at a higher level, would you
Yeah.
say? Okay. Charlie, I think you're next.
I would say like doubt based, but then also kind of the past dwelling with like don't walk this guy again, but then focus on what he did last time.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the reason I ask you guys this is because we all tend to fall into the same pattern, right? We tend to think the same things over and over and over. And so the sooner you can become aware of what your kind of default self-talk is, the easier it is that you'll know, like, when that moment strikes, okay, I fall into my default pattern. Now I can go back and handle it. It just gives you like a tool in the toolbox of, okay, I'm aware. that I tend to get focused on the future, or I'm aware that I tend to hope and pray in situations and hope I don't walk a guy. And so once you become aware of that, then you can start to go to the tool belt of, okay, what's my release? What is it that gets me back in the present moment? Whatever it might be that helps me compete at the highest level. And when we're in this detrimental mode, obviously we're not able to compete at the highest level, correct? Like when you get into the doubt-based area or doubt-based self-talk, have you performed well, Grayson? Okay. And that's the point I'm just trying to make is we have to be aware of this so we can learn how to handle it. And so these are all things that you guys know, right? When we start to get into these types, we all feel it, right? We have tension. Our focus is we're distracted. We're focused on things that don't matter at the moment. We start to get internal with our thoughts. We start to worry about mechanics, right? Pressure gets higher. We're unsure of ourselves. Okay. So then what is beneficial self-talk? So I just want you to read through these. So for each of these, you'll notice the difference, right? So if we go back to the detrimental, look at doubt based. I hope I don't walk this guy again. Okay, look at process focused, attack the zone. Okay, so notice the difference in language, right? When it's I hope I don't walk this guy, you're worried about what you don't want to have happen. When it's process focused, attack the zone. Now we're worried about what we want to happen. Okay, we're creating our own environment. We're creating our own situation that we're going through and we're taking action. Okay, so for all of these, it's basically just the opposite. Okay, results focused. I need to get a strikeout here. Where if I look at present centered, it's this pitch right now. Okay, if it's second and third, one out, you have to strike a guy out, right? Tie game or something. Okay, you got to get that guy out because the runner can't score. And you're so worried about striking that guy out, what happens? You start to yank on your curveball a little bit more, right? And you spike the thing, or maybe you hang it. And then what's the issue? Well, now it's 1-0. Okay, because you threw that first pitch breaker. And now you're down in the count. And then this doubt starts to fall in, right? Now the guy's sitting fastball because it's 1-0, right? Or maybe even 2-0. And now you feel like you have to throw a cookie in there because you're down in the count, right? And he's sitting fastball, so then boom, he bangs it. You see what I'm saying? But if you start with that present centered focus of, okay, I just need to make a good pitch 0-0 and get ahead. Now it's 0-1. Now you got a chance, right? Maybe he fouls that first pitch off. Okay, and now it's 0-1. Okay. Still, we get into that mindset of, hey, I got to strike a guy out. Okay, we're still focused on something that hasn't happened yet. Okay, because we can't strike a guy out until we get to 0-2 or 1-2, right? Or at least 2 strikes. And so you still need to make a quality pitch in that moment. So that's why this pitch right now is really important. Okay, and whatever it might be for you, it's going to be different for everyone. The identity based ones, this is what competitors do. So if you start thinking about, it doesn't really match with the mechanical overload, but what happens is, we start worrying about what if I blow this lead? What if I don't have my stuff that day? Okay, where a good way to think of self-talk is like, okay, what kind of person do I need to be in order to compete in this moment? Okay, what would Kobe Bryant say right now? You know what I'm saying? Where would he be at? He'd be present moment focused. He wouldn't be worried about the future. He wouldn't be worried about the next opportunity. Okay, so when we start to think about identity-based self-talk, it's like, okay, what kind of person do I need to be? What would a tough player do right now? And how would they handle it? And then if you can say that out loud, you'll start to become it. Does that make sense? And then other things, just smooth, explosive, target. This challenge mindset one is one that I really like. That was something that I would like to, or kind of go to, if it was like a 2-0 count, let's say I got down 2-0 and hey, a fastball's coming, right? And I would just say, I'm going to get him out on this pitch rather than worrying about what might happen if I lay a 2-0 fastball in there. I just say, hey, I'm going to get him out right now. I'm going to get him out on this pitch. I'm going to try and get him to swing. And more often than not, what would happen? He'd ground out, or he'd put in play, or he'd fouled off or something, right? Because we're the one with the hitting's hard. Don't forget about how hard hitting is. Okay, and still the best hitters are hitting at the high school level. The best hitters are hitting what 400. So over half the time, something good's still going to happen, right? So just remember that, right? And if you're a bottom of the order guy, right? If you're seeing the 7-hole hitter, right, and it's 2-0, what difference? Let's delay a fastball in there and let him roll it over. Okay, he's a high school guy, right? We're better. You guys have been training all offseason. You guys are good. Okay, so don't forget that, right? 2-0, 2-1, any of those counts, challenge him. See what we can do here. Okay, instead of worrying about, oh, I hope I don't walk him. Hope I don't go 3-0. Hope he doesn't crush this 2-0 fastball. Freaking go after him. Does that make sense? And then just keep it simple. So if you have instructional things, like sometimes you can tell yourself like, hey, on my curveball, I got to get my fingers to the front of the curveball. Okay, that's super simple, easy to do, right? It's nothing that's like super complicated. It's not like, ooh, my back hip, I need to get to 20 degrees of internal rotation or what, like it doesn't have to be this complicated thing. Hey, got to get my fingers to the front here. And so those are all different types of beneficial self-talk. So let's go through the list again. Anything that really jumps out as things that when we're at our best, which of these, what are there 6? Which of these 6 do we feel like we like to live in?
Mine's present centered. I like to focus on one pitch at a time and make sure I'm executing that pitch before I think about the next pitch I throw.
Okay, I like it. Gabe?
I'm process focused. I just like to throw strikes, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good. Grayson?
Yeah, I'd say I'm process focused.
Okay. Cam?
I'd probably say process focused or challenge mindset because I feel like I'm a lot different and not many people are used to it. So if I have a challenge mindset, I could kind of see how I can have that edge.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it for you, especially when it's like, yeah, I mean, you're definitely weird. You throw from a different arm slot, right? Left-handed. Everything's kind of unique. Just be like, hey, buddy, here, hit it. See if you can hit this, right? It's kind of strange. It's not hard. Like you don't throw hard necessarily, but it's unique, right? And I feel like you're someone that always kind of plays with a chip on their shoulder,
Yeah.
right? And so that seems to fit you well. I like that. Charlie?
Probably process focused.
Okay. I like it. So these are just another thing that I want you to do, because remember I said that the number one thing is you have to be aware of your self-talk and you have to be aware of what your kind of default is. And so what I want you to do is I just want you to think about how you might answer these. Okay. And we don't have to, I'm not going to ask you to answer them all right now. Okay. But if self-talk is something you're struggling with, or if you're like this is a great way to start to tackle the mental game. So if you're on your phone right now, just take a screenshot of this. And I want you to just go through and think about how you might answer these questions because none of these things are good things necessarily, right? Well, okay, let me rephrase that. Like after giving up a hit, not necessarily a good thing. Okay, but what's your default after you give up a hit? And let's say not just like let's give 2 situations. Let's go like ground ball GB through the infield and then double off the wall. So let's just go through these quick. Like you give up a ground ball through the infield, what's your typical response? And not everyone has to chat, but if you have one off the top of your head, if you wouldn't mind sharing, it'd be awesome.
I'm kind of just like, all right, he got that one, but I'll just get the next batter because if it's a ground ball, the infield could have just been playing where the ball wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, if I give up a hit on a ground ball, I'm like I got lucky. It wasn't even a good hit.
Right. Anyone have anything different than that? Because that's exactly how it should be. I mean, really, as soon as the baseball leaves your hand, you have no control over it. Right? It leaves your fingertips. You have no control over anything that happens at that point. And so if they get weak contact and you threw a great pitch and it's just like a six hopper through the infield, tip your cap. Like, right, sweet dude, you got a cheap hit. Cool. You just boosted your batting average, I guess. Right. It's nothing but a peanut to me. Okay, it doesn't make any difference. Because the next pitch to the next guy could be a freaking line out to the shortstop, and that's an out, right? And so which one's better? Okay, I would personally think like, oh, ground ball through the infield, weak contact. I'll give that every day in the week, every day of the week. And if some guy, if they string together a couple in a row, so what? You got to tip your cap sometimes. Okay, what about a double off the wall, like a freaking screamer?
I talk like positive to myself, like, okay, I'll get the next one and make sure to stay low in the zone. Cause sometimes like when you get like mad at yourself, you throw cookies down the middle or like higher where they're like more hittable.
Okay. Anyone else?
I usually get that usually means I didn't execute a pitch and I left it over the middle of the plate, so I get pretty mad.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would just know next time if that guy comes back up in the order, I'm not giving him that same pitch. Is usually what I'm saying.
Okay. How many of us fall into, okay, I just gave up a double off the wall and now I'm worried. I just gave up a double off the wall and it's because I laid it right down the middle. This next hitter, I'm going to live on the black a little bit more. Anyone fall into that mindset? Charlie, is that a nod? Okay, so my argument with that a little bit would be, okay, I just gave up a double off the wall. Now I'm going to live on the black. And what kind of mindset is that now if I just put myself in, if I'm going to try and live on the black or throw a nice low pitch rather than worrying about leaving it down the middle? Do you think that's actually a good thing or not, is what I'm getting at? Rather than staying in attack mode. Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, if you just give up a double off the wall and now you're like, okay, well, now I kind of got to like, hey, maybe I need to paint a corner a little bit more. Now we start to get into this perfect mindset where it's like, okay, I need to start making perfect pitches so I don't do that again. Right. And now we're worried about the future because anytime you have that, ooh, I hope I don't do this again. Okay. Really, the next time the guy comes up, hey, I'm going to freaking go after him again and do it twice, buddy. See if you can. Now I might pitch him a little differently, right? We might throw a first pitch slider, or we might throw some change ups or mix it up a little bit. But in terms of my aggressiveness towards the hitter, that should not change. Does that make sense? And so that would be my challenge in those situations of, okay, yeah, I missed my spot, but I'm not going to be afraid to miss my spot again, right? I'm not going to be afraid of some outcome just because he pounded it off the wall. Does that make sense? What about falling behind in the count? I mean, I know that we all slip into this. I don't want to walk him, right? Am I right? Okay. Before a big game,
Don't
this is
mess
kind of like, no, go ahead. Sorry, Troy.
don't mess up.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm usually pretty confident, but I'm also in the same mindset of I've done all this work. If I don't execute it now, it's kind of what's the point? Like I got to do good.
Okay. So kind of that results based.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? This kind of goes back to what we talked about last week with the nerves versus excitement. Okay, your body doesn't really know the difference, right? So how you interpret those feelings really is what matters. Okay, and so if you Cam, I don't know if you went back and did you watch last week's?
No, I haven't yet.
I would. It'd be good for this one. We kind of talk about just how we handle pressure and how we frame it in our minds, and really your body doesn't know the difference between nerves and excitement. And so if you just like enter into that, like if you realize that that nervousness is actually your body preparing you to perform well, rather than, geez, I hope this goes well, or I kind of have this butterfly sick feeling, right? I'm worried about what might happen if things don't go well, right? It's just two different ways to interpret the same feelings. And really it's just your body preparing for battle in a sense. During your warm up, I'm assuming that's kind of the same as here, especially depending on the game. What about after a great performance? This one's always kind of interesting. What's our self-talk like after that?
I usually go straight to like, all right, what's next after this? What's gonna happen now that it did good? Is anything gonna
Okay.
change?
So still kind of in that results based.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I would say I'm pretty confident and cocky after.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyone else? I kind of have after a great performance, I kind of have an interesting perspective on this, or thinking back to my playing career. Like, I always would tell myself after an outing, sometimes even after an inning, or sometimes even with two outs, let's say I get two really quick outs, or maybe I cruise through the first inning, I would always be telling myself that I hadn't done anything yet, that I was actually really hard on myself. Like, I'd just be telling myself, like, you haven't done shit today, seriously. And I would do that because it would it'd keep me in the present moment, right? I would constantly be telling myself, like, you have not done anything. How dare you think that you've arrived, right? And a lot of people might look at that and be like, man, that's really negative. But what was that doing for me? It was actually keeping me in the present moment. It wasn't helping me worry about like what just happened or what's going to happen. It was like, sweet, you threw up a zero. Yeah, you haven't done anything yet. You've proven nothing. Okay, so you better go. You're not really good until you go out and do it again. And again, it kind of goes back to this beneficial versus detrimental. To some people, that might be really detrimental. Okay, because it's like, man, this you're never positive. Like, if a coach told you that, it'd be like, man, is what I'm doing never good enough? But for me, it was like, no, it kept me freaking locked in. Okay, it kept me from getting that cocky attitude, and it kept me working and hungry, right? And so I think you kind of have to figure out like what works for you. Like, take confidence from the good stuff when it happens, but then also be humble enough to know, like, okay, you haven't done anything. Like, you still need to keep proving yourself, right? And for me, sometimes I would do it even with two outs. Like, sweet, how often do we get two quick outs and then we relax? And then the wheels fall off. It happens a lot, right? So sometimes I get two outs and I'd be like, you better freaking figure it out and get this last out, and it's like I'd be super hard on myself and it'd keep me freaking dialed in and make sure that I wasn't relaxing in those moments. And then next thing you know, we get the last out. Next thing you know, I throw up 5 zeros, right? Be the seventh inning, giving up one run or something, right? But it's because I just constantly was keeping myself in that present moment. And so for all of these, like I said, I had you take a screenshot. Um, just think, like, is this helping me or hurting me? Is this beneficial or detrimental? Okay, does it keep me focused on what I can control or not? Does it help me stay in the present moment? Is it creating tension or relaxation? Okay, and whichever one that is, that obviously everyone's a little different in terms of what their mind space needs to be when they're competing, but just be aware of that. And so um this would be another, well, kind of skipping around here a little bit, but this is another one just to kind of think about when you do get into those detrimental self-talk scenarios. So just read through those once. So if you find yourself kind of living in this left column, don't walk this guy, just replace it with something that's beneficial. Attack the zone, right? My mechanics feel off. Hey, I'm just going to trust my preparation. I'm going to trust myself. I can do it. Okay. We've all had these moments where it's like, ooh, something doesn't feel quite right. It's like, no, you're fine. You're just in your head about it. Okay. I need to strike him out. No, I need to get to 0-1. Then I need to get to 0-2. Then I can worry about it. Right. I can't blow this lead, or even, hey, if I don't do well here, I won't get another opportunity. Yeah, I think a big one would just be where your feet are, right? Live in the present. Okay, we'll worry about the future when it comes. It hasn't arrived yet. Okay, we'll worry about the next opportunity when we get it. But for right now, I got a job to do, and it's right here, right now. Does that make sense? And then this is another big one. I think this actually might be the biggest one. Like, there's going to be so many times, it might even have already happened this year, where you're not going to feel good or you don't feel like you have your best stuff. Ooh, my velocity's down a little bit. My arm's a little cranky, and I don't feel like I have my best stuff today. And you know what? You just got to compete with what you got. So instead of using these as excuses, oh, my velo's down, or my curveball doesn't feel quite right. Like, no, you got to go out there and figure it out. Compete with what you got. Okay, if you only got 80% that day, compete, give 100% of that 80%. And if you can do that, right, which one's going to get the job done? Probably that second mindset where it's, hey, this is what I got today. I'm going to get you out regardless. I don't need to be 100% for me to get you out. Make sense? So I would screenshot these also so you can refer back to them. And then maybe think about what yours might look like. Okay, so what's effective? Keep it short, keep it meaningful. It's got to work for you. Can't work for me. What worked for me won't work for you. What worked for you won't work for me. Focus on the process, not the outcome. These are all things that you guys should know. But I think starting to figure out, what this language needs to look like for you, what you need to tell yourself, I think can be super helpful. Okay, and then when to use them. So, how do you talk to yourself pregame? How do you talk to yourself between innings? If you think back to last fall, we had Brett Sears on, and you guys watched that. He always talked about how his self-talk actually wasn't very good during the week, right? He kind of was hard on himself, and I think that was actually a good thing because I think it kept him hungry and it kept him working really hard during his pens, right? It kept him humble. But then what do you say happened an hour before the game started? Do you guys remember? So he said, he's like, I flipped that switch and I was the best freaking guy out there. I was a freaking dude. Right. So all week he was kind of hard on himself to keep him hungry. Right. But then it came to game time an hour before, he'd flipped the switch and he's like, yeah, there's not a single guy that's going to get my number, that's going to have my number today. Okay. I'm the best. I'm the baddest guy in the field. Right. I'm going to get the job done. And so just knowing how to talk to yourself in different moments, whether it's pregame, between innings. Okay, like I said, for me, between innings, I just open zero. Yeah, so what? Cool. Now I got to go do it again. I'm not a good pitcher until I've done it twice. I'm not a good pitcher until I did it 4 times. I'm not a good pitcher until I did it 8 times. Right. After mistakes, so something to reset. Talked about that last week a little bit. Next pitch, focus forwards, one that I like to use a lot. Right, focus ahead, not on just what happened. During the delivery, maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's just one thing. Hey, fingers to the front on my curveball. Okay, hard to the bottom of the zone, work downhill. Simple things, right? We don't want that to be complicated. And then pressure situations we want to simplify. Okay, maybe it's just take a couple deep breaths, relax. Okay. We talked about kind of your routine. Not going to really worry about that too much for today. I did want to just show a couple of examples of guys that I think can be helpful. So Marcus Stroman, HDMH, height doesn't measure heart, right? Marcus Stroman's like 5'8", and he's always been doubted his entire life. And so he just would constantly be telling that to himself. Okay, I'm not going to let my height define me. Height doesn't measure heart. Okay, I got the heart of a lion. I'm going to go out there and compete, and I'm going to get the job done. It's worked out for him, right? Been playing the big leagues for a long time. Max Scherzer. You guys ever seen those videos of Max Scherzer talking to himself during the game? The guy's a freaking psycho, and he's got 2 eyes that are different colors. Okay, imagine sitting in the box with that guy. Okay, screaming at himself. Do you think that doesn't work for everyone? Not everyone can be Max Scherzer. Okay, but Max Scherzer knows what works for him. Okay, you compare that to like a Clayton Kershaw, right, or a Corey Kluber. Corey Kluber, those guys look like they're just like stone-faced, stoic, right? But that is what works for them. Okay, so it just really depends on the athlete, like we said. Okay, Brett Sears, like we talked about that one. He's pretty negative between starts. Okay, and that's what keeps him sharp, keeps him humble. But during the start, he was pretty positive, and by positive meaning, hey, I'm the baddest guy on the field. I'm a freaking dog. No one's going to beat me. Okay. Jordy Ball, right? Pitcher for the Huskers, pitched to Oklahoma. I wrote this one down because I was listening to her when she won the national championship 2 years ago for Oklahoma. She came in and closed, and it was I can't remember what the situation was. It was a tight game, and afterwards they interviewed her. I mean, obviously she got the job done. Afterwards they interviewed her, and she said, "Yeah, I was just trying to throw like 70 or 80% because I was so freaking amped up. I was so juiced that I knew that if I just was cruising at 70 or 80, that I was going to be pitching at like 100." So she was telling herself to slow down, right? Pitch at 70%, you'll be fine. Okay. So it really is just different for everyone. Like imagine the awareness that that would take. Okay. If we're pitching in the national championship, how many of us would be out there be just hucking it as hard as we possibly can because we're so juiced? Every single one of us. But she was so in tune to herself and could trust herself so much. She's like, you know what? I'm going to pitch at 70% because I know that right now I'm so freaking full of adrenaline that I'm going to be throwing at 100. Okay, so I thought that was really cool. So what I want you to do this week is just we all are going to get appearances this week. We're all going to throw pens. Whether it might not even you may be even in the box. Okay, but I just want you to start to think about what that internal dialogue is like. I want you to recognize if it's beneficial or detrimental. So start to categorize it. Hey, this is helpful. This is not helpful, and then start to substitute things with those phrases that we talked about, and start to think about, okay, what could I replace these thoughts with that would actually be helpful for me? And that will help direct you back to the present moment. And you just do it over and over again until eventually those negative defaults will become positive, right? They'll become helpful. I shouldn't even say positive. Make sense? Okay. One thing my pitching coach would always say, you can listen to yourself or you can talk to yourself. So our default is typically listening to ourselves, right? And our default of our brain is to typically focus on the negative, right? I suck. I can't do this. You're not very good. Um, and so when you're listening to yourself, that's when that negative side kind of kicks in. Or you can talk to yourself, right? You can always choose to talk to yourself positively, and by positively, I mean beneficially, in a way that's actually helpful for us in that situation. And that's a choice, fellas. So that's my challenge for you this week. Questions?